Sandra Schuett, international business. What do you know about it? You have an American company. Can you move it? Can you open a branch? Could you also sell your product or service in the European market? Well, that's exactly what Sandra does. She's in Berlin now in Germany. She spent a significant amount of time here in Northern California, Silicon Valley, at a tech firm. And now she's gone back to Berlin, and this is what she does. She helps American companies open up offices, their market, their product or service in Europe. So right away, the questions begin about some of the cultural differences, what needs to be done, interpersonal. My father is from Southern Italy. Business is conducted very differently there than it is in Germany or let's say the UK. We talk about some of those differences. I mentioned specifically in Italy, when we greet, we kiss. We kiss twice, sometimes three times, never once. It's an insult to be once, by the way. I explained how you'll see in the episode. But in Germany, it's a handshaking culture. That's it. But just also how to test the waters, how to go to fairs and do marketing and sales for your product to kind of test the waters and which market would perform better with your service. It's a fascinating conversation with Sandra and what her process is and how it gets done. It's endlessly fascinating to me because many here in the States just don't look at the profitable revenue generating opportunity in Europe. Thanks for listening. Hi, I'm Joey Pinz, and here's my 45-second introduction. After starting my business in the 90s, I started developing poor habits of eating in my diet because of working way too much. Before you know it, I found myself 340 pounds. The doctor told me if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. Took the next 7 months, lost 130 pounds. People think there's some secret. Ask me, how'd you lose that weight? Like there's some secret. There is no secret. How did I lose the weight? Just one word: discipline. I've had other successes in life, and I attribute them all to discipline. Now, I'm not the king of discipline, but I believe that it can help all of us. Friends, colleagues convinced me to start a podcast. The podcast mission: how do we better ourselves and society? I talk to interesting people in health, fitness, sport, wellness, business, technology, science, art, and culture. And I eventually ask them how discipline plays a role in their life. Podcast vision: growth through learning from others. Sandra Schuett, thanks so much for your time. I'm very excited to talk to you. So, what should we know? I'm in the States, you're in Berlin. What should we know here in the States about running a business in Europe?
Oh wow, that's a very tough question right at the beginning, Joey.
Mm, mm.
Um, all right. So there's a lot of things you have to pay attention to, like when you enter the European market. First of all, you have to make sure to have your salespeople there, but then also you need your marketing. Like they go hand in hand. You can't just do one or the other because, like, especially when companies want to enter like a new market, they want to save the cost, not too much budget, and they either go with sales, only sales, but there's no marketing. So that's for
Mm.
sure very important. And then also there's some local peculiarities, or we might
Yes.
call cultural peculiarities,
Mm.
that you should be paying attention to and adjust. A lot of things. It can be your marketing campaigns, up until your product itself. Maybe when you've traveled yourself, like in different countries, there's in well-known drinks other sugar amounts in it, because like
Mm.
tasting things can be different in like other cultures. So yeah, a lot to pay attention to.
I mean, in the States, there's a big difference. I'm going to use the word cultural. I don't know if I can, but between let's say Texas. I know you spent a lot of time in Northern California, even there, and New York. I mean, but overall marketing, like the big companies can still market pretty much the same. I guess it really depends on the product. You wouldn't try certain things let's say in some southern states, but I mean in Europe, I mean my father is from southern Italy, and
Hmm.
Sandra, that's very different from Berlin. I've been to Berlin before. Southern Italy has just got its own flavor, and
Hmm.
they're wonderful people, but they don't work much. It was just a very,
No.
I mean, it's great food, it's great people, but they just live. What to say? They live, they work. No, no, they live and it's just they only work to live. That's it. They don't
Yeah,
really.
they work in order to live. Yeah,
That's right.
that's the
Yeah.
saying.
In fact, asking somebody what they do for a career can sometimes be insulting because, then they can kind of figure out salary and they don't want to be identified by how they work. Whereas in the States, that's almost the first thing we ask when we meet somebody. What do you do? So there's just those kind of cultural differences that are very different in Europe. They're not over you can overcome them, I'm sure, but there's just the Americans need to be aware of this.
Absolutely, and especially, it's Europe in terms of size. It can be compared to the States, which is one
Mm,
country, but we're so diverse, like so many little countries that you can visit within a day. But as you were mentioning, like Italy compared to Germany, as an example, can be so different.
yes, yes, yes. Both wonderful, but just different. Just different. And the way I couldn't imagine opening a business up in southern Italy, whereas I could imagine in Berlin. So it's still very different. What do you think some of the biggest obstacles or barriers that Americans need to understand?
You mean in terms of culture or in general, like when they enter the European market?
Yeah, when they entered the we just saw today, in fact, that um, Apple and Google, EU, right? There's a big tech crackdown. They were offered some money, I think, in Ireland, and it was unfair, and the EU kind of came down on them. We see this a lot. The way the EU handled Apple to make them go to USB-C, which I'm all for, by the way. That's a whole different subject. But the EU actually seems to be doing some things that the US just won't. And it's so there's that as well too, by the way. I'm all
Mm.
over the place here, Sandra.
No, no worries, no worries. No, but that's a good keyword here all over the place because there's so many things to pay attention to as well.
Yeah.
Like when you enter a new market, and that's why I say, this cultural part is just one component that you
Mm,
have to pay attention to. But of course, it's not all. Like you have to come up first, like with a strategy, like which markets make sense. And one of those strategies actually is to go into those markets which can be more similar to your home market, because
mm,
then you don't have this cultural stretch, so to say, that much.
mm,
um, and then you need your local partners, and of course, like I was mentioning at the beginning, you can't afford having like a whole sales team, whole marketing team in every market at the beginning. So that's why you somehow, like, it makes sense to have like a local expert to test the
mm.
waters first, and from there really build your offices, teams, departments.
Yeah, because I think I spent a decent amount of time in Italy, as I mentioned, but I think many Americans look at Europe as if they're states under one big government, and
Hmm.
that's not the case at all, right?
Hmm.
There's still the EU, but the EU isn't really a governing body, right? Perhaps you can explain that a bit, how the EU is, what the relationship with all the countries are, the European Union versus the country of solidarity.
Yeah, so we have like the continent, which is Europe, and then there's the EU, which is like the organization, so to say. And not every European country is in
That's
the
right.
EU,
That's
so
right.
you have to kind of apply for it, and then there's a lot of processes to become part of it. And once you are, there are some advantages for sure, like legal things, or even like when you sell products, when it's like sold within the EU, it has like certain standards, like in
Mm,
terms of what can be in it, like chemicals and these kind of things. So this is like the same then in every European market or EU market. But yes, we're not a country, right? We're not
right.
states of the EU. We're really like different countries.
Yeah, and there's so many things that you do better over there. Like we have pharmaceutical advertisements here. You don't do that there. And um, so getting back to having an American company and thinking about opening one up in one of the countries. Let's just say Germany, for example. You mentioned the point how you should have local presence there, get local sales, get local marketing there. That way, they can bridge the gap between any misunderstanding. How is that done particularly? Are there firms set up just to do that?
Well, there's me, for example. So that's
Why
what
we're
I
talking.
basically do. Yeah, because, um, like I said, you don't have the budget to really have a whole team there for different departments at the beginning. So it makes sense to get like an expert. And that's what I do. Like, I really have like this, testing the waters program, you might
Mm,
call it. So, what I would do is we check first, like, what's your product, services you offer, which markets make sense to enter first, then how do we approach them? Because, a big focus for me is the tech industry, which is
yeah.
B2B very often. So there it might make sense to have me find great industry fairs that would make sense to go to, and to test the waters there first, like
Mm,
see how the product is received there, and then go from there, do follow ups, up until having really like a client base. And I take care of the first account management part. So it's really like how you start with your business. Let's say when you found a startup in your home market, you also like taking care of everything a little bit, because
mm,
there's no other way. And I'm kind of this person then in Europe to
mm.
test the waters first. That's how you could compare it.
And let's stick with tech and B2B. That's my background as well. Are there some markets that accept tech and B2B more than others?
No, I wouldn't say that. I mean, it depends. That's the best
Mhm.
answer here. But it depends. I wouldn't say,
Mm.
like, I wouldn't exclude a market. It depends very much on the product as well.
Now define market. By market, do you mean geography? Do you mean what do you mean by market?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, geography in this case. Yeah, yeah. I mean, country in this case.
And even in the country, there's probably, I'm guessing, there might be better. I mean, you were in Silicon Valley. I mean, it's known. That's known here in the states. There's a lot of startups, a lot of tech startups. Certainly, there's tech startups in other states, but that's where kind of it all began. I'm sure there's something similar there, and that's where that local knowledge comes.
But you mean in terms of then, let's say there's a Silicon Valley startup that wants to enter Europe, you
Yes.
mean that they would have certain countries where it wouldn't work that well to sell to? Is that
Mm.
what you mean?
Is that the case? Yes.
And that's what I mean. It depends,
Yeah.
like you can't say that. It really depends. Like it depends on the budget itself, like, and the needs there. But I would not say, like, we're not so diverse that one B2B product would not work in one country and in the other it wouldn't. I wouldn't say
I
that.
see. I see. And there's all these, just like here in the States, outside influences that nobody has control over, and they have to be a factor in deciding where to put your tent up, put your company up. There's economic ones. There's a war going on. I mean, that all has to be factored into what 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 where you want to what market you want to penetrate, right, Sandra?
Yeah, there's so many factors, like also, compliance things,
Mm,
legal parts, and that can become very complicated. Whereas, or I mean, compared to the fact that we have this EU system, there are similarities then,
mm,
but it doesn't always apply to that. It's everywhere the same, yeah.
mm.
Like
And the
GDPR, for example, isn't
okay.
is a thing, a EU thing, which we all have to stick to. So then it should be pretty similar. The rules in every market.
That's very fascinating. Let's talk about GDPR. So it's obviously it's a consistent way to handle privacy data. So if a country or company fails in compliance, the EU has the right to fine them, and that's it's amazing to me. So has there been? I was trying to figure what's the equivalent of that here in the states. Is there an outside agency that can actually sue a state for not complying to data privacy or something like that. I'm sure there's examples of that, but understanding those laws are part of what you do to help.
Well, not really. Like the law part, I'm not like a legal advisor, So
Ah,
here we really have to say this is not my expertise.
I
I'm
see.
really more about, the sales part, the marketing part, and like the local peculiarities. But when it comes to legal, I'm definitely not the right person.
So let's talk about sales and marketing. How different? I mean, you were here in the States, you were at SAP, big enterprise company. How different is sales and marketing in Berlin than it is in Northern California? Is it still done the same way?
It can be super different. Like,
Hmm.
I mean, also here it depends on the product. But let's say, for example, talking about cultural peculiarities, maybe you've heard of this comparison of individualism and collectivism. So
Mm.
there are some countries where a very individualistic approach is preferred. Now, what that means would be, for example, the states are in this category, individualism. It would mean I am responsible for my destiny, so to say. I have to work hard and then I will be rewarded. I do, what makes me happy also. Like, you do you, that's like
Mm.
this individualism part. And then the collectivism, where a lot of Asian countries, for example, would
Mm.
fall into that category. There it's more about the group is more important than like my personal well-being.
Mm.
There's more like dependence on others, and also this, maybe you've heard about the not losing face part. So I really want to always, how can I say it, like I don't want to embarrass myself in front of the group. It's very important to keep my face.
Huh.
So this is like something that can be very different, and this can be then transferred to like marketing, because what is marketing? It's basically playing around with values. And when you have a market that has more of a individualism value, your campaign can look totally different to the collectivism one. Like as a rough example, it would be in your ad. In the American one, you would have one person who achieved his new goal, I don't know, maybe like fitness goal. You would see this person very happy at the gym. This would not work in a collectivism, let's say,
Hmm.
country that much. There we would maybe have, a group of people playing a group sports together, and they're supporting each other somehow in the picture. This is like just
Hmm.
brainstorming, but you know what I mean. There can be a lot of differences in terms of like the campaigns done.
Now, how about a lot of times in B2B in business, it's not transactional. It's a lot of relationship building, where you have to, be there, you have to, kind of date before you marry kind of thing, right? Is that very similar in Europe as well?
So I would say here it can also depend a lot on the countries. Like southern countries, Italy as an example, can be different to Germany in that sense, the way you build relationships and then also how you negotiate at the end of the day.
Mm.
But yeah, that's a very important part, especially like in tech B2B. Um, it's there. I put more focus on, compared to, let's say, a consumer product. I would put more focus on adjusting the campaign. But when it's about B2B, we have to make sure to have the right people, relationships, distributors, vendors, in different markets.
Yeah, it's just I just keep on going back to that point. It's um just culturally how different. I mean, so I'm in the tech business as well, and it's all relationships, Sandra, right? So you talk to somebody, you may go to dinner with them, you may have a drink with them, you continue to talk to them. Maybe didn't even get that far, but you develop a rapport. And in the States, people generally buy from people that they like or they trust.
Mm-hmm.
Same thing there.
Yeah, but the question is, how do you build or how do you gain that trust?
Hmm.
Because it could also mean that with your example, having dinner with someone to build this business relationship could be too much for some countries.
Mm.
They would say, no, this is like my private time, privacy. This guy is super
Ah,
annoying, and go away. you know, there's no trust then.
very interesting. So that's a cultural thing right there, where the delineation between business and private,
Hmm.
where after hours they don't do anything business related, or on the weekends or holidays.
Exactly. Or like, the small talk even. Like when you have dinner, then it's very common in some countries that you would ask about the family, how your kids doing. This is also not working in other
Huh,
countries. This could be too private as well, you know.
fascinating. Here in the States, that's expected, isn't it? Pretty much. I mean, you ask, it's expected.
Yeah, and that's also the other part of it. It's expected in some countries. You would then
Yes.
feel, not happy about it when, like, if the person wouldn't ask you that question. Yeah.
Yeah, because I've done decent amount of business on the golf course. You really get to know
Hmm.
somebody after 18 holes. I mean, you're spending 4 hours with them. Do they throw their clubs? Do they get swear? Do they not take it seriously? Do they take it too seriously? Do they drink the whole thing? You just learn a lot about somebody. Even when I had to hire my own internal salespeople, I would take them out just to kind of try to see a different side of them, that may not be available when you're interviewing them. Is that common there?
Those, you mean activities like sports and stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a very good one as well, which can be very diverse or different in different countries for sure. Like it could be a no-go in some countries. It would
Mm.
be too much like touching like privacy compared to others where it's more expected and working super well. Mm.
So how do we understand these cultural differences? How do we get past them? Make sure we don't make a mistake. I know going to the Middle East, where there's certain things that are culturally unacceptable. I mean, you could be put in jail for somebody that something that they didn't really understand. I mean, got to get through this barrier.
Well, I would always advise like look for like local experts. You need to
Mm,
work with locals, especially like in B2B, especially like in tech industry. You need some locals there. Like you can do, there's intercultural trainings that you can do also. Like a lot of people feel more comfortable with it, like when they go abroad to have like a crash course, on cultural peculiarities in market ABC.
mm.
But I would still say like having local people there is the best way to go.
Your mission, Chandra, is to empower IT companies to successfully expand into European markets. Do you feel that most IT companies should be in Europe?
Yes. Why
Why?
not? Why not? No, I mean, that's I actually had a LinkedIn live about this topic with this offline online world some weeks ago. So, when you are like a company, a tech company, and you have your website on the world wide web, right? The name already says it, then you're a global company, you might think. But this is not the case, because you're like online and a lot of people could visit your website, nobody knows about it. And then what do? You need to select the right markets that you would like to enter and where it makes sense, and
Hmm.
then take it from there. So you're not just a global player because you're online. And that's to come back to your question, should we enter the European market? Of course, it does make sense, but it depends on the product and it needs the right approach.
Hmm. It does need the right approach. It's fascinating to me that I've done almost 500 of these conversations, and I love them, and I look forward to. But I always generally start the conversation out with something just a little personal. You have a dog or anything like that. And when I'm doing research on you, Sandra, couldn't find anything personal about you. You don't let that go. And I looked at
Really?
LinkedIn. I looked at your website. I looked at videos like, what can I open up with that's just something personal? And I think, well, I think this is purposely done. I just think she doesn't want that. And the more we talk about it, it's not appropriate in some venues.
Huh. Yeah,
Thoughts?
that could be that could be a cultural reason. No. I don't know. Like, I'm happy to share something, but I don't know what personal you're looking for.
Nothing now, but I guess it just goes to the point of, uh, I was born and raised here, and generally speaking, I just to kind of break the ice, talk about
Mhm.
some hobby. Of course, Berlin has a great football club. We could open with that. I don't know if you watch football. I certainly do, but I guess it's just one of these cultural differences that that's just not worse or better, just different.
Or to also come to that point, could be personal.
Right.
Just because this is like, a how can I say it? Like, you have to be careful to say what is cultural and what is just personal, like what is just an
Ah,
individual thing. We're not all the same just
of
because we
course.
are from one country, like we live there, we're born raised there. You have to be careful with these things for sure, like we're all individual people.
And that's a very good point. There's plenty of Americans that I talk to that if you kind of open up with something that they might push back a little bit. Well, hey, you gotta,
Mm.
it's certainly not that way for everyone. So we have an American company. We want to open to a European market. We contact you. What's the conversation like?
So first, I would like to know how do you do it in your home market?
Mm,
What works well and what doesn't? And then we take it from there. We check, okay, so which countries might be a great fit? Like, where is there not so much of a stretch then to do? Like,
hmm,
those are the low hanging fruits, so to say, the right markets to start with, because there we don't have to adjust so much. And then we need the local, like the offline part going on, started. So that means checking which industry fairs should we go to,
hmm.
which distributors should we contact, and then next step, go to these fairs, do the follow-ups, see how it works, up until having me being your account manager to really nurture those relationships.
Wow. So it's really kind of feeling out a territory or feeling out a region before you can actually penetrate. That's very interesting. These fairs you talk about, so these are just conferences that would be related to the industry?
Exactly. Like some events, there's so many, like in tech industry,
Right.
where it makes sense to test the waters. Hmm?
Hmm. And the difference from going from B to B to B to C, business to consumer in the European market is what? Is it similar to here? Just the messaging is
Yeah.
completely different?
Yeah, I would say, there's really like, you can't draw a line so harshly anymore. Like a lot of people have noticed that as well. Because at the end of the day, we're all human beings, right? But yes, for sure, like B2B would be more relationship building, like finding the
Mm,
distributors, going to those fairs, compared to B2C is more like, social media, for example, could be an example. Yeah.
transactional. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So that's a good point. Social media. How different is it than here in the States? Is it similar to, I mean, we have influencers here and they take themselves quite seriously and they make, some make decent amount of money. Um, but there's plenty of huge ones there. Is it similar?
Yeah, I would say like the fact that they are there is the same, is similar. But then here again, it depends on the message, like the message you want to bring to your audience, and at the end of the day, make them buy a product. And that's where it
Mm,
becomes interesting. What should be the value of your message? Like what I was saying before, should it be about buy this product and you'll be the superhero in your group, or would it
mm,
be buy this product and you can all support each other with it and be happy as a group, roughly
hmm.
said.
And what should employers here in the States understand about employees in Europe? What should their expectations be? Similar to here?
You mean when they hire in the States from Europe, or when they want to, you know,
They
have a
hire
whole
European.
office? Yeah.
Yes, they hire a whole office and they have European employees. Can they are there unions? Are there, is it similar setup as far as holidays and work week? I mean, what are some of the expectations American employers should understand?
Yeah, so there we're touching a bit like the legal part, as I said, is not my
Mm,
expertise, but for sure there's like, for example, in Germany, it would be 30 days holidays per year is like a good amount, these kind of things. There are differences
yeah.
for sure. But also there, when we're talking about salespeople, for example, um, how do you come up with your incentives program? Like also
Mm,
there it makes sense, like in some countries, people like it when they can, show off and ring the bell, I closed the deal today. Like that's very
mm,
common in the UK, for example. But
mm,
there's other, or in the US, but there's other countries where they feel uncomfortable with it. They would not like to stand in front of their colleagues and ring a bell just because they closed the deal. So this can be, I mean, it sounds funny, but this can really, when you don't know about it, um, kind of,
yeah.
disrupt your whole sales, because you would ask yourself, why do my people not sell anything there? But they feel uncomfortable ringing the bell. I'm exaggerating, but you know
Of
what I mean.
course. Yeah. I go back to I would go to southern Italy as a kid and all through my teenage years. And Sandra, it's just the whole just the way. I'll tell you a quick story. So my two cousins worked for the local village, and I know they clean the streets and things like that, and minor things. And I remember I was there, and it was a Monday, and they weren't working. And I asked them, "Why aren't you working?" And they said, "It's raining. We don't work when it rains." And I said, "Okay." So Tuesday it was raining again, and they didn't work. Wednesday was a beautiful day, and I said, "Why aren't you working today?" They said, "Well, you never start a week on a Wednesday." So, so, so
Love
I
that.
so you laugh, I laugh because we understand what they're like there. But many American employers will not understand that mentality.
That's a very good example. I don't have that example, but yeah. No, that's yeah, it's funny, but it's also a local peculiarity.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, and it seemed like every day was a holiday, Sandra. I mean, today is Saint Stephen's Day or Saint Martin. I mean, it's OGF Fest, right? Today in Italian, say it's festival today. It's a holiday, and it's just you said 30-day off for holidays and the festivals, a 30-day vacation. Yeah, it's just different. But the European market still thrives. It's still the German economy is the French economy. I mean, the UK economy. These are great areas to really, really build up your business.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. That's why so many want to enter the European market.
I have a friend that works at Netflix in Germany,
Hmm.
and I asked her, like, what's the difference between, you know, sometimes she's here in the States, sometimes she goes there, and she said the American culture has pretty much taken over at Netflix Germany. I don't know if this is different in other places. And I said, yeah, well, how about the days? They get vacation days and everything. He goes, well, that's true, but the amount of they still work a lot. They're still working long hours. They're still demanding. I mean, it's pretty much like an American company. Is that what is that common?
I've heard about this too, yeah, because it's somehow a bit of this um idealism thing,
Mm,
It's kind of like I'm proud because I'm working for an American big company and I
ah,
love the culture. I watch like American TV all the time and I want to
interesting.
become part of it, so to say. So I think that a lot of people then can identify with it and become part of this American culture. Yeah.
Mm. I probably shouldn't have mentioned the name of the company, but oh well. But yeah, I was just surprised to hear that. But I mean, is it safe to say that Germany leads? leads as far as Europe, as far as the economy. I mean, France is close, but Germany is. I mean, it's the model for the economy in Europe. Would you say?
No, I wouldn't say that.
No,
This
really.
is I mean, this is like changing every day, isn't it? Like when you look
Mm,
at statistics, I mean, for sure, like we're good there, but I would never say that, Germany is like the superhero of Europe or anything. No.
mm. Yeah, there's just so much. God, I love Europe. I love the way even healthcare, things like this, that the Americans are used to pay. We pay so much as employers for healthcare, and we don't pay that there. And um, just the way that it's set up. It again, it's different. It's not better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah, it's different. That's a good summary. Yeah.
When you work with some of these American companies, what are some of the biggest obstacles you got to work over with them?
When they
About
want to enter the European market,
yeah.
well, I would say it's really this understanding that so many different components have to go hand in hand with each
Mm,
other. And because there are a lot of companies that say we'll just have some salespeople in this new market, and then when they sell an X amount, then it works, and if they don't, it doesn't. But
hmm,
this is not how it works. Sell some, like, you if you think of like cold calling, as a basic sales approach.
yes.
It might, or I'm sure it works a lot better when you have some campaigns going on as well. Like, I remember when I was working in sales, it was one of the best mornings. Open my emails, and there would be a lead because someone downloaded a white paper somewhere. But how does this happen? Because there was marketing involved as well. And
Mm,
then we take it from there, and then we might close a deal. And that's what a lot of companies have to understand when they want to expand. They can't just pick, bits and pieces where they think this is the most important, and we have not a lot of budget now, so we only do sales as an example. That's not working. Like, we have to I understand there's a budget, we can't have it all, but we have to approach it like in a systematic way, I would say.
Sandra, those are the same problems that are here. I mean, we because we have so many of these companies who don't want to invest in marketing, they just want to invest in sales, and it's not. I mean, so it sounds like it's the same problems.
Yeah, but the problem is that overseas, and for you as US companies in Europe, you need to have your local experts. That's what I mean. And you need
Right.
to test the waters with some campaigns at least
Mm,
to understand, is it really my product that doesn't work there? Is it the
uh,
market? You can't just do one of 10 components and say, okay, no,
I
it's not
see.
working. Like, that's what I mean.
So when you say test the waters, do you mean like focus groups?
No, I really mean like those components I've mentioned, like have some
Really?
campaigns, have some sales approaches, go to some industry fairs, to mention some of those, and then
Wow.
see if it works. Because then you can really say it works or it doesn't, but not just do 100 calls a day in Spain, and if nobody, buys it, then Spain doesn't work. That doesn't
Give
make
up.
sense.
Ah,
Yeah.
I see. I see. I see. I see. So that's similar to here. But when you're setting up some marketing campaigns and some sales, you actually have to be ready to be able to sell your product, service, whatever it may be in that market. Does so let's just assume it's an IT product and it's B2B and it's a SaaS platform. So there's nothing actually physically going to the country. I guess that would be the least difficult. You're not having to have to ship any product.
Exactly. The only component is like the legal stuff, but other than that, for sure. Yeah.
Legal, GDPR, these
Yeah.
kinds of considerations have to be in. Yeah. What brought you to this? Why do this?
Why I do this?
Yeah. Why do you like to do this?
Oh. I'll give you a bit of a background about myself now.
Please.
so, I've been working both in sales and marketing. But I have a master's degree in intercultural communication and competence. And
Mm.
so I noticed, like, when I was working either in sales or in marketing, and especially like for big tech companies, I felt like there was always something missing. Like, for example, I worked in sales. I had these like leads in the morning and understood, okay, cool, because we had some campaigns in my target market running. That's why I have a lead now as a salesperson.
Hmm.
But smaller companies or startups, they don't have that. And so how do they do this? And this is like where my, intercultural expertise comes in as kind of like a bridging part, so that I can help, systematically taking care of like different markets at once, testing the waters there. So this is really how I wanted to bring all of my background components together. I love sales, I love marketing,
Hmm.
was mainly working in the tech industry, also abroad, living abroad a lot, and studied intercultural communication. And then I thought it makes sense to bring it all together.
Is it common to handshake? Do we handshake? Do we hug? Do we kiss? How do we do it in Germany? How do we introduce each
Handshake.
other? Handshake.
Handshake.
Yeah.
We're a handshaking country.
In Italy, we kiss, but it's got to be both sides. That one kiss that we do occasionally here in America, they consider an insult
Mm-hmm.
because Jesus was betrayed by one kiss.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where they go back to. So it's fascinating to me. Even so, you talk about intercultural communication and the way we need to understand these things. Like in Asia, we would bow, we'd never touch. Right? In Brazil, they actually want to handshake and actually hold the elbow. They actually do a full
Mm-hmm.
kind of full
Mm-hmm.
kind of, so it's just so different. And like your point you keep kind of bringing out is you gotta understand local.
Yeah, for sure. Either learn it before or have a local person there. Yeah.
Now, would there be some places in Germany that are different, that are more than a handshake, or can you even regionalize it within the country? I'm just using Germany because you're there. That
Oh,
hugging would
yeah.
be there would be.
For sure, there's regional differences. I'm not thinking, okay, also Germany for sure has regional differences, but France would be a good example with
Mm,
your example about like the kissing.
yeah.
There's different regions where it goes up until 5 or 7 kisses
Whoa.
compared to the one or two. So for sure, there's regional peculiarities as well.
Fascinating to me. Fascinating. I don't think we have that much of a difference here in the States. I mean, as far as that, but I enjoy it. And where do you see yourself? So, I mean, you're going to continue to do this for companies. Do you work outside of tech?
Um, I do, if it's the right fit, if I'm happy to help, but my focus is for sure tech.
And what if they say, what if a client says or a prospect says, look, I wanted to go to Holland because I have some technicians there that are working. I want to go to that market. But after discovery, you realize that that wouldn't be a good fit. How do you have that conversation with them?
So here we really want to stick to KPIs then. This is why
Mm,
it's so important to go, let's have some marketing campaigns, let's do some sales approaches, which we can really measure. And then it's really like a numbers game at the end of the
mm,
day, where you have facts and where you can say, okay, we tested the waters, let's say for half a year, but it does make sense as you can tell from the numbers here and there. That's
hmm,
very important to me as well. Like it's not like a emotional feeling kind of thing.
right,
Like we
right.
need some numbers.
And have you had a case where you found that their product or service just won't work in Europe?
I never had like a no-go
Mm,
situation.
mm,
It was more that then in those cases I would need to be more focused on the consulting part, where I then give ideas and recommendations how we can adjust certain things to make it work. But I've
mm.
never had a case where it was like a no-go and the market doesn't make any sense. It's more about the how and not about the if.
So I could see how sometimes B2C might be a conflict of some local peculiarities, but in B2B, I would think there'd just be some kind of refinement, but never really a no go. Do I have that wrong? in business to business. I mean, pretty much every offering
Exactly.
in the States should be available in the European Union.
Exactly, that's what I mean. It's about the
Yeah.
how, testing what
Mm,
works, what doesn't, and how we adjust one thing or another. And it's not only, we're talking about the cultural part, for sure it is important, but which is also very important, have the right partners, relationships,
mm.
and then make it work. Yeah.
It's fascinating to me. We as Americans need to really understand the marketing and profiting revenue based opportunities there in Europe.
Yeah, that makes sense.
We certainly do. We definitely do. We need to understand it. Just because they speak a different language or have some different, you know, culture, doesn't mean that it can't be ripe for opportunity.
Yeah, and it's also, a bit sad because it's kind of lost opportunities,
Mm,
because you might think what I was saying before, oh, we have this website now, we are global. Oh, but nobody buys anything from Germany. Well,
mm.
don't give up. It's not just because you have a website they would see you. No, of course you have to somehow build the relationships, go into the market and focus on it more.
So Sandra, I started my tech firm. I was doing computer support and software
Mm.
development back in the 90s. I was working way too hard, 14-hour days and not paying attention to myself. Before you know it, I got myself up to 340 pounds. The doctor said to me, if I don't lose the weight, I'm not going to see my daughter graduate. My daughter was just born. So I spent the next 6-7 months, lost about 130 pounds, and kept it off. And people ask me, what's your secret? And there's no secret, Sandra. How I did it is discipline. That's how I got routine. I got willpower. That's how I lost. That's how I kept it off. I wonder how discipline plays a role in your life.
Well, first of all, I admire what you achieved,
Mm,
Joey. Congratulations to that. So for me, I think, yes, so for sure, it's super important. Like, I have my own business, and I think, I always try to keep my like goal in front of me, like what I want to achieve, like how I want to help the companies. But I think what's also part of the discipline is understanding where you have to. Adjust things as well, like the way you position yourself as a company, where you want to go with it. Because for me personally, when I founded my company, Glocult, uh, I was very much about this cultural stuff. I was about, I'm your intercultural consultant. And
mm,
then I was also testing the waters myself and could see that the market maybe is not so ready yet for understanding, hey, we want to invest a good amount of budget here for having her explaining to me how we should enter the European market from a cultural perspective. So then I really had to be or stay disciplined and not also give up and understand, okay, it's also a way of positioning myself. I am an expert in, I have my background in sales and marketing in the industry. So now I really position myself more, and it's what it is, I help you enter the European market, and we'll take all of these components together and add a pinch of salt in terms of cultural competence. This is where I had to be very disciplined, for
mm.
sure, as well. Like, I knew what I was doing, I knew what I loved doing, but I had to stay disciplined enough to make the market understand why I am so
Mm.
crucial, so helpful.
That's very interesting how you brought that back there. How discipline plays a role there. What motivates you, Sandra?
For my business, you mean?
Yeah.
I want to make people understand, or help them understand that, anything is possible. You just need to bring in the right components to make it work. That's
Hmm.
basically what I'm doing. And I'm bringing in this, intercultural competence, but I help you find the right people, the right relationships, and let's bring this all together and not give up before, because there's a solution.
Hmm. Why do you like it so much? Why do you like bringing businesses to Europe?
I think because I love in general like this international stuff. I don't know
Mm,
how to
mm,
else say it. I mean, and as you mentioned, I lived in the Silicon Valley and now
yeah.
I'm back to Europe and I just love it. Like I love this international stuff. There's no better explanation.
Yeah, because you just didn't read about it. You lived in the States for a while. So you lived the experience, you understand it better, you had hands on, eyes on, and I'm sure there were some awkward moments where you had to get over things and just like I did
Oh
when I
yeah,
was there. Yeah, and then
for
and then
sure.
you learn quickly. So how do you measure success?
Well, for my clients, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, like I said before, like that's a good part of my what I'm doing is we have a lot of KPIs. Like we can check like campaign KPIs, we can check sales, and that's where we can say we became successful for sure.
Hmm. Well, Sandra, I'm very excited to talk to you. I'm so glad we did. I enjoy Europe. I love it. I'm trying to get dual citizenship right now in Italy. I mean, I want to spend
Mm.
more time there. Um, once you get citizenship in Italy, you get to the whole EU. It's great. But as far as business, I always pull back a little bit only because I have the experience of southern Italy where it's very different. I mean, I have friends in the UK that are in the tech field that are very different as well. But I really enjoy this topic. If anybody listening, how can they get in touch with you?
So for sure, with my website, it's glocal.com. And then I'm also happy to connect on LinkedIn. I'm sure we can put, my contact details in the show notes. And also actually have a $0 webinar coming up about this topic, like first steps, baby steps entering the European market. So I'm also happy to put like the waiting list form in the show notes with you.
Very good. www.glocled, glocled.com.
Correct.
And of course, your name, Sandra Schuett, which is Sandra, Sandra Schuett, Schuett. We'll make sure we put it in the show notes. Sandra, thank you so much. I hope when next time I'm in Berlin, perhaps we can get together and have a cup of tea.
I would love to. Thank you, Joey, for having me.
You be very well.
You too. Bye
Auf
bye.
Auf Wiedersehen. Thank you for listening and or viewing Joey Pinz Discipline Conversations. Please share this episode with one or two of your friends who you think may benefit from the episode. Our website, www.joeypins.com. There you'll find lots of resources and you could join our mailing list. Please follow us on all our social media, Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook. Podcast information, the video version of our podcast is on YouTube. Please subscribe. Audio is on all major podcasting platforms. Please follow them. And if you like it, please consider giving 5-star rating. Would really appreciate that. Thank you again for listening or watching Joey Pin's Discipline Conversations.